Hey there guys, I'm SonicGhost and welcome to something a little bit different. Today we're going to start playing Sonic 4 Episode 2. Now, due to Hurricane Irma, I've lost my internet connection here for a little while and I wanted something else to record to help pass the time, so I figured why not play some Sonic 4 Episode 2. This game won't be replacing Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the channel. Think of this as just some filler until I can get things back to normal here. But before we start playing Sonic 4 Episode 2, we want to go ahead and play through Episode Metal. If you own both Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Episode 2 on the same system, you unlock Episode Metal, a storyline where you get to play as Metal Sonic through 4 separate stages that lead up to the events of Sonic 4 Episode 2. So Episode Metal takes place after the events of Sonic CD. Metal Sonic is still stuck at Stardust Speedway on Little Planet. So Eggman calls for Metal Sonic to be revived here and brings him back to his planet so he can fight Sonic once more. If you haven't played Sonic CD, you might be a little bit confused with this cutscene because you'll be wondering, where is this place? What is a long time? Because the game doesn't really tell you what long time means in terms of actual time. That could be months, years, who knows. But you'll also be confused with who is this character in general and what happened to Metal Sonic. Why is he destroyed and needing a reboot? But that's about it, because outside of this opening cutscene, the game doesn't really need you to play Sonic CD to really understand what's going on. Also, I do like this little touch of detail because they're playing Toot Toot Sonic Warrior. The song everyone has officially named themselves. It's not the official name of the intro song to Sonic CD on the Sega CD, the Japanese version, but everyone just calls it Toot Toot Sonic Warrior because you can really hear that in the song. But once you watch that cutscene, now you get to see your 4 levels you can go ahead and play, and if this world map looks familiar, it's because it's ripped straight from Sonic 4 Episode 1. The 4 stages you get to play through in Episode Metal are the 4 stages that were from Sonic 4 Episode 1. Episode Metal is kind of a retelling in terms of gameplay of Sonic 4 Episode 1. I played that game a couple years ago on my channel before Sonic 4 Episode 2 was released, so it's quite fitting to go back to Episode 1 using Episode Metal, since we're getting to play the Sonic 4 Episode 1 stages now with the Episode 2's physics, which are better than Episode 1 because Episode 1 felt a lot more floaty, but at the same time we're playing through with a different character, Metal Sonic. But we're back in Mad Gear Zone, and this place is pretty much, I think, designed to revive Metal Sonic as a whole because it explains what a lot of these contraptions were made for. But starting off here in Mad Gear, you already see how Episode Metal is going to be playing out, where they introduce you the 4 slicers surrounding you, one of the worst enemies in any 2D Sonic game, and you start out with 4 of them surrounding you. It's ridiculous. That pretty much just sums up Episode Metal right there, that picture entirely. Episode Metal has a lot of changes to the Episode 1 levels design that don't really make them harder, just more annoying and cheap. The thing is, with these levels, they don't really add anything in particular that is new. They just add a lot more death traps. There's more spikes, there's more crushing, there's more enemies you gotta deal with. That's pretty much it. The level design from Sonic 4 Episode 1 to Episode Metal is the exact same. We're playing through Act 1 of each level from Sonic 4 Episode 1. So there's 4 stages in total here, and these are very familiar. There are very few changes here in terms of how the actual levels are structured. The entire structure is the same, but you're going to see things that are moved here and there. Like, for example, some of these little pipes in Mad Gear Zone, they're going to be shifted around ever so slightly. So that's really like one of the only cosmetic differences I can think of that's not really an enemy placement. But that's pretty much the biggest problem I have with Episode Metal, is the stages, they don't feel changed enough to really feel fresh, which wouldn't be too big of a deal if it wasn't for the fact that the enemies and the instant death traps here, if they were just more tolerable, because they cranked it up to like 300% for no reason. They heard the complaints. Sega just heard that Episode 1 was too easy. So I think that's what they were trying to do here with Episode Metal. They were trying to make it a lot more difficult. Problem is, if you just add in more stuff that can kill me in one shot, that's not difficulty, that's just an artificial difficulty curve. It's just cheap. So I don't find Episode Metal to be harder in terms of structure, I just find it to be cheaper. But this is what you get when you own Episode 1 and 2. This is free, and this isn't any kind of DLC, so you have to own both Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Episode 2 to play Episode Metal, which is a problem if you owned Episode 1 on the Wii, because Sonic 4 Episode 2 never came out on the Wii. It came out on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and the PC. So if you own Sonic 4 Episode 1 on the Wii, and you want to play both Episode 2 and Episode Metal, you're kind of out of luck. You had to go out and get the game on a different system, which at that point a lot of people just ended up getting the PC copy. But the problem there was, Sonic 4 Episode 1 wasn't originally released for the PC. It was originally released for the Wii, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the iPhone of all things, but it was never released for the PC. So, months before Episode 2 came out on the PC, Sega had to rush together a port of Sonic 4 Episode 1. And you could tell it's rushed because the game is held together by string. It's a technical mess. In fact, one of the biggest examples I can just tell people all the time if they play Sonic 4 Episode 1 on the PC is if you collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, the message you get saying you now unlock Super Sonic, that crashes the game. Every single time I played Sonic 4 Episode 1 on the PC, it has crashed after I gotten all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Luckily, the game doesn't delete my save data, but every time I get the emeralds, I have to let the game crash, load it back up, go through the game again, and then just continue where I left off. It's really annoying. And there's no reason for it to crash because the console versions never had that problem, but the PC version did. And it's just confusing to see just how bad that port was. It plays fine, it's not stable. It can crash on will, and it's annoying in my opinion. And one of the other things I should mention is that the PC version of Sonic 4 Episode 1, it just runs entirely off Java, if I'm not mistaken, because when you load the game up, the first time I loaded it up, it loaded with a java.exe file, which is the same thing you can load in your web browser. So the game wasn't built in its own engine for a PC, it was just like some kind of direct port that was using some other software, which is probably why it crashes a lot. I'm not getting all this information right probably, so don't quote me on this, I might have some of my facts wrong, but the game itself, you can definitely tell, wasn't meant to be played on a PC, and they needed to put it on the PC because of Sonic 4 Episode 2, and Episode Metal in particular, needing a copy of Episode 1 in your Steam library, so you can definitely tell it was rushed. But now, getting back to Episode Metal's story here, now at the end of Lost Labyrinth, we have this glowing orb of power that Metal Sonic absorbs, and then he rushes out with so much power flowing through his circuits. And that's it. Like, that's all you get to see of that power in Episode Metal. That's supposed to be the power that Metal Sonic gets to use in Sonic 4 Episode 2 when fighting Sonic, but they never really explain much of that. So, you just get to see Metal Sonic grab that little orb of power here in Episode Metal, and then that's it. Like, you don't really get to understand what's it really used for. So, not very much was explained here, unfortunately. And that's kind of a disappointment, because Episode Metal is supposed to serve as this story bridge between Episode 1 and Episode 2, explaining why Metal's back and how he got the power that he uses in Episode 2 to begin with, but they don't really tell the story that much here because there's only like 3 cutscenes in the entire Episode Metal storyline. One of them showing he's being revived, one of them showing he got that orb of power, and then one of them just chasing Sonic, and that's it. Whoa, what the heck happened there? That was weird. Good to see that Sonic 4 is still Sonic 4, where you can sometimes clip through bumpers. That happens all the time in Episode 1. It's good to see it still happens here. But going back to the story thing, I know there's not really too much that I can explain. I'm not really counting that intro cutscene with Metal Sonic on Stardust Speedway in those 3 cutscenes I was talking about, because I'm just talking about when you're playing the game. That's about it. Because when Episode Metal really starts is when you get to select your level. So that cutscene that they showed before you get to play the game in general in Stardust Speedway, they could have actually had that in the beginning of Episode 2, and it would have made sense. But they don't really explain much of how Metal Sonic really uses his power until Episode 2. They don't really explain what the power is, so who knows? It's just something that he can use to just power up his body and shoot out an energy blast. That's all we really know. That's about it. I also just got to talk through the entirety of Casino Street without even mentioning some of the gimmicks, because they're the same as Episode 1, except you don't get to see the running card gimmick that they had in like Act 2 and 3. So you just get the bumpers, the pinball mechanics, and slot machines, that's it. And it's the same thing as episode 1, where you get in the slot machine, you have a chance to win some rings, which can get you some 1-ups. So I got lucky back there and got myself a free 1-up, which is pretty good, because I normally don't get 3 Sonics in a row. But now we're already on to our final stage. Yeah, episode Metal is just about done already. We're now in Splash Hill Zone. And this zone, it's very short. And because of that, you're going to notice a lot of the problems of episode Metal's difficulty right here. Because a lot of the changes they make to Splash Hill are the cheap kind of changes, where they throw you more into spikes or enemies. And I don't really like Splash Hill all that much in episode Metal. And you're going to notice a lot more of those chameleons in Splash Hill here in particular. They're all over the place and in some really terrible positions. Like right here, I don't like the positioning in those chameleons. They're sitting there when you're having to wait for a platform to rise. So it's very easy for you to get clipped by one of those guys just from waiting. It's really annoying in my opinion. I don't know why they had to do that. It was just kind of unnecessary. But that's just the enemy placement in episode Metal to begin with. I thought episode Metal was a fun little add-on, but at the same time, the artificial difficulty they made with the enemy placement and just some of the extra death traps they threw in here, not really the biggest fan. If I'm going back to play episode 1 levels, I'm playing episode 1. And if I'm going back to play episode 2, I just skip episode Metal. I barely touch episode Metal. I think this is actually just my 3rd time playing it in general, maybe my 4th. I haven't played through the episode Metal stages all that much because I'm just not a fan of the level design. It's just too cheap in my opinion. But at the end of the story, we see Sonic Tails flying away on the tornado, and we just have this convenient Tails rocket here, so Little Sonic's just gonna grab it and go. How convenient Tails just left his rocket just sitting there in the middle of Splash Hill for us. But that's it. That's episode Metal. And at this point, the story now just goes straight into the events of Sonic 4 Episode 2. So, with that said, thank you guys for watching episode Metal. It's a very short playthrough, but at the same time, it's just supposed to be a nice follow-up to the events of Sonic 4 Episode 2. So with that said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.